There are few people as aware of the transience of public interest and taste as the American photographer David LaChapelle. He does not conform to standard classifications. LaChapelle not only possesses a highly distinctive signature and a breathtaking technique, he holds up a mirror to us as self-appointed art lovers. A highlight in LaChapelle's endeavor to gain an artistic hold on the changeability of everything that must be or wants to be modern is his ambitious seismic shift. LaChapelle's perspective on the art scene is that of a man who is simultaneously insider and outsider. With Seismic Shift, LaChapelle has created a work that could be a symbol for the state of art at the start of the 21st century. He transports us into a partly dilapidated ruin of a modern museum gallery. The costly building and its even costlier contents have been severely damaged by a devastating earthquake. Some works of art might still be saved, while others are a total loss. An analysis of this photographic museum landscape can serve to gain a better insight into the artist's mode of thinking and working.
This was a small to moderate earthquake. That lake was 62 degrees yesterday. Today it's up to 68.
Gonna punch through!
You mean it rough?
Yeah!
No more museums, no more department stores.
The building that is on the point of collapse in Seismic Shift. The steel girders, with their bright red color, are an unmistakable feature. Museums have long been the new cathedrals, used by countries and cities to compete with one another. In Seismic Shift, it is not just the building, but also many of the works of art represented within it that belong to the collection of the philanthropists Eli and Edith Broad. Let's start on the left side of the image, the Nurse of Greenmeadow painting by Richard Prince. While Prince used an inkjet printer to mechanically transpose the image of the novel to his canvas, David LaChapelle physically constructed the museum environment. He not only recreated the diverse artworks, but paid attention to many details. In the background, alongside the work by Richard Prince, there is a lone mammoth that, together with automobiles and architectural elements smeared in tar, has broken in. In the foreground stands one of the iconic balloon dogs by Jeff Koons, rendered here in red. The work of Koons, initially a critical commentary on consumer culture, has become an example of the worldwide demand among super-rich buyers for whom art is a brand. Behind Koons's balloon dog, you can discern a painting by Chinese artist Yu Minjun. Yu's trademark is male figures that smirk hysterically. In the background of Seismic Shift, the laughing figures seem to add an additional, uncomfortable layer to the situation. Takashi Murakami, who is sometimes dubbed the Japanese Andy Warhol, is renowned for his style, in which high art is fused with low art. Murakami does not shy away from commercial collaborations and the associated mass production. A gallery in the background of Seismic Shift is wallpapered with the multicolor Louis Vuitton pattern, and floating in the water are several Louis Vuitton bags. Andreas Gursky 99-cent, visible just behind the Murakami, captures endless rows of 99-cent bargains in an American supermarket. Ironically enough, a similar work by Gursky, 99-cent 2 Diptychon, was auctioned by Sotheby's London in 2007 for the then record amount of 1.7 million Great British pounds. With his inclusion of 99-cent, Is LaChapelle trying to conjoin the untenability of the art system and consumer society in general? Alongside the Gursky hangs one of David LaChapelle's own works. In keeping with the subject of a museum as ruin, we see his After the Deluge museum. This photo could be understood as the classic pendant of the contemporary seismic shift. Around the corner, fairly centrally positioned, lies a pile of several classic street lamps that belong to the urban light installation by Chris Burden. To the right stands Untitled Shafted by Barbara Kruger, who is renowned for her powerful visual motifs, often combined with black and white photographs, with which she critically pokes fun at consumer culture and power structures in society. If one takes a careful look at the red words in Seismic Shift, there are literary references to be found in this text. The word picture is part of a quote from George Orwell's dystopian novel 1984. If you want a picture of the future, imagine a boot stamping on a human face forever. To the right of Kruger's elevator shaft, there are two paintings by Jeff Koons hanging on the wall. The three basketballs also belong to Koons's iconic oeuvre. Floating, as part of three-ball 50-50 tank, normally are perfectly centered within the black frame. But here in Seismic Shift, they have broken free. The yellow-green caterpillar entangled in a ladder, which borrows its motif from inflatable water toys, is also part of the Broad Couples collection. This caterpillar treads across the pink painting from the Camouflage series by Andy Warhol that is floating in the water. Warhol produced the painting from this series in 1986, the year in which LaChapelle captured his last portrait prior to Warhol's death in February 1987. Also part of the Broad Couples collection are several works by artist Damien Hirst. Death is a frequently recurring theme in Hirst's oeuvre, as is evident in the physical impossibility of death in the mind of someone living, which is literally made from a dead shark that floats in a formaldehyde solution. The shark was replaced in 2006 because the rotting process was unstoppable. Perhaps that is why the shark looks especially frightening and decayed in Seismic Shift. With Seismic Shift and its modern museum in ruins, LaChapelle harks back, consciously or unconsciously, to a much older art historical source. In the 1790s, French ornamental and landscape painter Hubert Robert produced a series of views of the royal palace that had just been converted into the Louvre Museum. He painted several variants of his subject, as a magnificent new building, but also as a decayed ruin. There has been plenty of speculation about the reason for Robert choosing this disturbing vista into an uncertain future. It seems plausible that this ties in with the revolution, which cost tens of thousands of people their lives and unleashed an iconoclastic outbreak of unprecedented scope. Hubert Robert and David LaChapelle may not be comparable as artists, but what connects them is that they have, at some point, rendered their visions of an important art collection in decay in a large format. With Robert, we see a budding artist contemplating and sketching studies in the middle of the rubble. The classical works, among them a bronze cast of the Apollo Belvedere, and Michelangelo's Dying Slave, continue to be fonts of inspiration today. We cannot know whether that will ever apply to Koons, Hirst, and Louis Vuitton's bags. But the seismic shift could happen at any time. Should we want to search for art historical sources, then perhaps we should be looking to Thomas Couture's Le Roman de la Décadence of 1847. With its many characters, living people, and statues, the architectural backdrop, and the social critique that Couture's contemporaries immediately recognized, This gigantic work resembles a LaChapelle avant les lettres. We are still children of the Enlightenment, and that also applies to our artists and the re-evaluation of art's function that was mobilized by that Enlightenment. What connects artists of then and now is that they search for the sense and meaning of creation and preservation, for what determines good taste, and how art relates to fashion, modernity, and eternal validity. Robert personally witnessed and participated in a radical upheaval. Couture was also present on the eve of a major revolution in 1848. And LaChapelle? To see what major upheaval he is foretelling, we will have to bide our time.